Now, on Tuesday, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are going head-to-head in their first general election debate on ITV. Multi-party one is going to follow, involving 7 different leaders and senior representatives, and that's going to be on ITV on the 11th of June. But since 2010's first televised election debate between Nick Clegg, David Cameron, Gordon Brown, will the impact of debate have waned or strengthened over the years? Well, let's welcome Stephen Coleman, Professor of Political Communication at Leeds University and author of Leaders in the Living Room. Stephen, thank you so much for giving us your time.
My pleasure.
What have the leaders' debates done for our politics? They were introduced in 2010. Have they made people engage more or less with politics?
Well, they make some people engage more. For a lot of people, it's not until the debate comes along that the election really registers with them. I mean, the problem is that politics tends to be talked about by people like you and I who are fascinated by it and follow all of the details. But there are a whole lot of people who have the same votes as us, but they don't really know who the party leaders are, what they stand for. And this is a moment where the election gets to those people. The agenda is framed for those people. They tend to see whether they agree with or don't agree with the 2 main party leaders, then a larger number of party leaders. And the other thing that they do, which we found from research over the years since 2010, is that they talk to each other about it. It's not as if the debate is just this platform event in which you have voting spectators sort of sitting there open-mouthed waiting for the gospel, but they go away, they reinterpret it, they talk to people in the pub, they talk to people at work, they talk to their families. And so the debate has a kind of civically galvanizing function, which is really important. Now, when it comes to the question of impact in terms of who wins and who loses, probably not very important at all. Most people have tended to make their mind up, but the people who haven't made their mind up are a lot of people. After all, even with this massive Labour lead, you've still got about a third of people who in every poll say something along the lines of, don't know, don't care, oh, is there an election?
Stephen, what about the criticism that sometimes these debates become very much personality-led? So people who perhaps are not engaged every day with politics and perhaps the policies and the manifestos that have been that we are going to be awaiting for the election, but actually will make up their mind on whose personality they prefer after having watched these debates. Do we really want people to be casting their votes on personality and appearance?
Well, you've added appearance, and I'm not sure that we've got much evidence that people are voting on the basis of appearance. But in terms of personality, it's probably not unimportant. I mean, we make most of the important decisions in our lives on the basis of who we like and who we don't like, and it's probably not a bad guide in terms of politicians as well. But I think actually that if we go back from 2010 across the debates, and if we look at debates in other countries as well, these things tend to be fairly policy rich. I mean, I don't think anyone after Tuesday is going to be able to accuse either Sunak or Starmer of being such overwhelming personalities that the policies couldn't get through. I think, if anything, it's only going to be the policies that are going to keep people glued to those debates.
What about ITV have announced that there will be a future debate with senior members of parties and leaders that will involve Labour, the Conservatives, the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, Reform and Plaid Cymru. Unlikely, I think, that we're going to see Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer take part in that debate. It will be senior Labour and Conservative figures. What do we make of this idea that actually the big one is only the 2 parties? Is that robbing people of a sort of a proper democratic process, that they want to see all parties be able to take each other on, and the leaders of those parties?
I think I think that's right, and B, I think people think that's right. The only really strong finding we've got from polling about what people want from the debates this time round is that 81% of people have said they want Sunak and Starmer to take part in a multi-party debate, because we are now in a multi-party polity. And I think that I think the problem is that these debates are organised by the leading broadcasters and the parties, and they are incredibly risk-averse negotiations. I would like to see the leaders of parties pushed into debates as a matter of course, not in the ritualistic way that we've been conducting them up until now, which I think people are beginning to find quite boring. I think there are all kinds of ways that we could jazz up debates. And actually, we did some focus groups with people to ask what they wanted. One of the things that really, a couple of things. One of the things that people said was, we want you to show them a film of a person with a particular problem, and then without showing it to them in advance, just say, what are you going to do for that person? That would be interesting. Other people said, we like those interviews at the end of The Apprentice where they really interrogate them. Why can't we do that to future prime ministers? Now, I'm not suggesting we do necessarily those things, but I think that given how exciting television and radio has become over the years, how imaginative and creative people like yourself working in the medium are, I can't believe that it's impossible to do better than having two guys wearing suits standing behind a lectern and quoting figures at each other.
What are the pitfalls for Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak? One thing I've come across from people that I speak to is, particularly people who feel let down by politicians, is that they won't answer the question. All you're going to get is a party line. And most importantly, and I say this because every Sunday on this show we speak to Full Fact, the fact checkers, most importantly, people get upset when facts are not corrected. And politicians are not brought to account to say, well, you said something that was inaccurate. You now have to come and stand on the same sized platform and correct yourself. Is there a way we can include perhaps fact checking in these debates?
Well, I certainly think that you can have, I mean, I think this is going to be a real problem, incidentally, in the American debates, assuming that it's Trump and Biden, and then you have one of the candidates who, let us say, is not just a typical party stretcher of the truth, but is a kind of, card-carrying liar. I think there are going to be problems, and I think that it is perfectly reasonable when somebody says something which has no bearing, no relationship to objective truth, for those conducting the debate, moderating the debate, to say that and to say, look, you either have to give us some evidence for that or you have to withdraw it. The public need to hear that. Otherwise, these things are going to be pointless. I think in terms of what they've got, and I think your point about evading points is again something that I would like to see moderators be much more aggressive about, intervening in debates and sort of saying, no, that's an evasive answer. That's not what the public want from you. They want an answer, or they want you to say that you haven't got an answer, which I think very often the public would be satisfied with. But in terms of what they've got to lose, Alexis, I think Starmer has much more to lose on Tuesday than Sunak. Is usually the other way around. Normally, the incumbent is a reluctant participant. After all, they think they're going to win. They've been in office. They've got all the power, and it's the opponents to win. This time, it looks much more like it's Starmer's to lose. So if Starmer puts a foot wrong, if he appears to not know answers or not be able to take on what Sunak says to him, then he's got some real problems. Sunak, on the other hand, has a real opportunity here to present himself as somebody who has got something new to say that we haven't heard so far.
Professor, thank you for giving us your time. Really fascinating. Professor Stephen Coleman there, Professor of Political Communication at Leeds University and author of Leaders in the Living Room.